everyone, welcome to an extra friendly edition of ARG Presents. I'm your good buddy, your bosom companion, your chum, Amigo Aaron. Today, joined by a man who hates you and everything you've ever loved, the Brent.
Let's try that again, Aaron.
What? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll take it from the top. A man who loves you and everything you hate, the Brent.
I do love things people hate.
There you go. See? It all worked out. Great. How's it going this week, the Brent?
I am doing well. We'll see how the week goes, though.
That's the spirit.
How about yourself?
Hey, I'm super duper, as you know. And I'm excited this week because we spun the wheel, we made the deal. And this week, the Brent, we'll be playing games from the very popular Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo.
Yes.
Now, admittedly, this is more of an America-centric console than others, but I managed to
America and Japan.
I managed to pry some Euro gold out of this thing, and I think Brent's got an interesting title as well, Brent. Now, you've got a long, vaunted history with the Super Nintendo, don't you?
Yes. Although my memory of it is completely hazy.
Old.
Well, it's not. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it is the Nintendo made such a huge impact in my life, and then the Nintendo 64 made a huge impact in my life. And the Super Nintendo was there, don't get me wrong, and I loved it, and I loved playing on it. But it didn't have the same impact as the previous and the after generation did. But funny thing you mentioned this, Aaron. I'm looking at an episode of Nintendo Power from '97, and it has 100 best games of all time, right? And it's not just Super Nintendo, but I wanted to talk about some of the things they had on this list for the Super Nintendo, right? Number 2, on the Super Nintendo, Zelda: A Link to the Past.
Right.
Now, I know you're not a big Zelda guy.
This is true.
But this game was amazing. It was such an improvement over the previous title. Well, although I really loved Zelda 2. But this kind of went back to its roots. That top-down perspective had a lot more story. The graphics were amazing. Did you play any Link to the Past?
Not really. Not
really.
No. I've said this before. The early Zeldas, the only one that I could tolerate was the one everyone hated, which was Zelda 2, I believe.
2.
The side-scrolling one, which, by the way, was also not very good, but I could at least felt like I was playing a game.
Now, see, that's my favorite Zelda, but that's on the NES.
Yeah, well,
okay, well, let's
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done. I'm not a fan, but I know it's popular. It's not my cup of tea.
Now, on the farther down the list, the next Super Nintendo game they have at number 6 is Super Metroid. Outstanding game. Holy cow. This is a game that not only was the gameplay fun, the story was actually compelling, and for a Metroid game, that's not something you normally hear. But holy cow, this is an absolute gem. You said you have played this one before,
I've
right?
played a bunch of the Metroid games.
Have you beat Super Metroid?
Yeah, it's good. It's funny that my favorite Metroid game is another one that most people hate, which is the one they released on the Wii. I thought that was a pretty good Metroid. And
okay, well, that just invalidates all of your opinions. So next we're going to talk about 8, 9, and 10 are all Super Nintendo games. And this is Nintendo's list of the best games of all time as of '97. They've got Final Fantasy 3 at number 8, Final Fantasy 2 at number 9, and Street Fighter 2 Turbo at number 10. Now, I know, obviously, we played the heck out of Street Fighter 2 Turbo, right?
Absolutely.
And I know you hate turn-based role-playing games, so I'm guessing, have you played either of the Final Fantasies?
Oh, God, no. No.
Now, Final Fantasy, I've actually not played Final Fantasy 2. Final Fantasy 3 was the first Final Fantasy game that I got into, and it's really good. Great story, great mechanics, But if you're not a JRPG guy, which I completely understand if someone isn't, it's not going to be your cup of tea. Can't comment on Final Fantasy 2. Haven't really played it. Obviously, Street Fighter 2, off the charts good.
It's amazing to me that these lists. They always have these lists, and they've got these Japanese role play games all over them. You know, why are these
super popular?
Why are they so superior to your, like, for example, why? So you got your Super Nintendo there. Why would, say, Final Fantasy 2 be better than, say, a Super Punch Out or something? I mean, I don't get that. You know, I mean, they attract those. That's a limited audience that's attracted to those games. Whereas something like a Super Punch Out is far more approachable to your average Joe. You know what I'm saying? These lists, they always have these games. They always cater to the fans of these JRPGs. It always bugs me.
Well, I don't disagree, but the sales numbers don't lie. I mean, like, Final Fantasy VII was one of the highest selling games of all time. So
yeah, I remember the commercials.
It's not a limited audience.
Yeah, it had commercials and they showed all the cutscenes. You know, I always wondered if people saw those cutscenes and were like, "Holy crap! I got to get me some of that sweet action." And they get home, they're like, "What the hell is this? Where's the anime girl?"
Well, I mean, I'm sure someone did, but that's not the norm.
That was my response.
Now, you have to go all the way down to number 16 before another Super NES game comes up, but it is one of the best Super NES games of all time, and that's Super Mario World.
Yeah.
Something I know you've played.
I beat that amazingly. Yeah, that's a good game.
I would assume so. This was, at the time, revolutionary, still an incredible game. Something you have to check out if you've never played it.
There's very few dud Marios. They do a pretty good job with that franchise.
Usually. Now, 17, complete mind blow, Tetris Attack for the Super Nintendo.
I don't think I played that.
I think this is a pander.
Well, Tetris is awesome.
This is not what you normally think of when you think Tetris. I mean, some of it is, but not. I don't think any puzzle game outside of Tetris would make my top 100 list. Well,
I'd have to try that.
Not top 20.
Some of those battle Tetris type games are actually pretty fun. We used to play one for the Sega where you have two players at once you could really hose your partner, and we did have a real good time with that. So some of those are really good. See, look, Rushi says it's great. So there you go.
Well, we used to play. I can't. The not Tetris Attack version. I'm blanking on the name, but it's the same tile swapping type mechanic all the time. At competitively over at the Lilly household with my friends from high school, still friends with today, and we played the heck out of it. I think my biggest problem is I'm not as skilled at that form of puzzle game as I am, say, Tetris. So I continuously got slaughtered, and that probably hurts my opinion on the game, and it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. I try not to do that. Just to round out the rest of the top 20 here, number 18, Yoshi's Island. Have you played that, Aaron?
That game.
Great.
I didn't like that game at all. No, I didn't like it. It didn't do it for me.
What?
I didn't like it that much.
Okay. It is a fantastic platformer. Do not respect Aaron's opinion. Remember, holy cow, Aaron. Great platformer. It took Yoshi and made him a main character in a game where it was absolutely perfectly suited for him to be the main character.
It didn't do it for me, man. I'm not gonna lie. That one, I didn't like it. Didn't like it. That's what.
And the last one from the Super Nintendo on this list, at number 19, Chrono Trigger.
Oh, geez, here we go again with this. I thought that was more of a Genesis thing. Isn't that what down on the Genesis? Oh,
no.
Okay, there you go.
Chrono Trigger.
What am I thinking of? I'm thinking Phantasy Star.
Greatest stories of all time for a role-playing game. Super deep, makes you care about the characters, which is vitally important in an RPG. And it takes you everywhere, all throughout time, from caveman days to the future and everywhere in between. does such a phenomenal job. Excellent music, fun and intriguing gameplay, even though it is just a turn-based RPG. If you have to sit down with a turn-based RPG, in my opinion, Chrono Trigger is where to start. I think it is a fantastic game.
It's got a cool name. That's one thing I will give it. That's a, but it's a game I actually have had a look at that, and I don't like those type of games. They just don't do it for me, man. So, but hey, whatever toots your horn. Have you beaten any of those type of games?
I have beaten Chrono Trigger. Absolutely. I beat Final Fantasy VII back in the day. I can't remember if I got all the way through Final Fantasy III. I don't think I ever did, because I know I didn't own it. I only rented it, but I rented it multiple times. So I cannot remember beating it. So I'm going to say that I didn't beat that one.
Yeah, well, those games always do rate highly, and they don't do it for me. So, and that'll be the theme going forward today, except reverse it. So, an interesting look at how those games fared. We had to,
from the 97 perspective.
Yeah. And I want to beat this point home here as we move down the line here. We had the Super Nintendo has a incredibly vast library.
Absolutely.
Brent. And from this vast, popular library, it was our duty to pick out 2 games to talk about. And I think we really did a bang-up job this week in picking 2 of the finer titles that were available for the Super Nintendo. I will lead the dance, because I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about this particular title, Brent. And the title I chose, and I'm going to give you the full name, because it's often abbreviated. That's a disservice, this game. This is called, bam, Super Dropzone Intergalactic Rescue Mission.
Wait, that's not the full name.
I'm sorry. It's Archer MacLean's Super Dropzone Intergalactic Rescue Mission.
There you go.
So, I was looking through, I mentioned this last week. I thought I'd try to find some European exclusive. I don't know how much the European exclusives, how much love they get on the Super Nintendo. And I looked, and there are quite a few, but man, there's some real duds up in there too. I mean, some stuff I'm like, how did this get released? And so when I saw Archer MacLean's name, I was like, bam, because I knew him from some of our other exploits on our various other shows. Archer MacLean has done a lot of good stuff, but a lot of his stuff on the 8 and 16 bits. Just to go over some of the stuff he's done. Of course, he did the original Dropzone, which we'll get into more of that in a little bit. But he also was responsible for International Karate, Jimmy White's Whirlwind Snooker, which we played, Archer MacLean's Pool, which was great. These were all great games, by the way. So he's done some good stuff back in the Dizzy. And so I thought to myself, man, here it is, European exclusive, and it's a remake of an 8-bit title, or a souped-up version. I'm in, brother. And so that's how I determined what I was going to play. This game was published by Psygnosis. That's something else. Psygnosis, I'm in. I didn't know they published any titles for the Super Nintendo, so I thought that was pretty cool. This was released in '94. This also eventually got a Game Boy Advance and a PlayStation release, Brentster. Of course, Archer MacLean was the man behind it. So, how familiar are you, Brent, with the original Dropzone? Have you ever played it?
None.
The original Dropzone was a game released in '84, so 10 years prior, and was released on all the 8-bit machines.
That explains a lot.
So you didn't know this, did you? Yeah. So it was released on the Atari 8-bits, the C64, the Game Boy, and the original NES, a bunch of other stuff. It was all over the place, right? And so, and this has quite a following on the C64. This was Archer's first commercial game, Dropzone. And so it did real well. It was real popular in Europe. So you know what that means. It means it's time to soup this bad boy up and give it a Super Nintendo. And you know, one thing I like with the Super Nintendo is that they didn't screw around. You just took a name and added Super to it, and you're in. I think that's probably the only console you could do that to, right? That's something you haven't seen really before or since, have you? Where you just slap that on the front and then that's your game.
There's built-in title. Add super.
When you scroll down the list of stuff to play, like coin ops, and you get to the S's, and there's like 4 million supers. Everything's super.
Yeah.
So that's the way you do it. So I know you're asking yourself, Aaron, what is Super Dropzone, and what differentiates it from the original Dropzone? Well, not much, to be completely honest with you. I've got the flavor text here. I'm not going to read all of this, but it does fill you in on what the hell's going on here. So what I like about the manual for this is it tells you what was going on in the original Dropzone, and then it tells you what's going on here, right? So it starts off with then.
Does it just add super in front of all the words?
It says, 10 years ago, there was a devastating robot war in 2084. Could there be a connection to Robotron? We don't know. It caused mankind to seek out new sources of minerals, right? And they found a bunch of minerals on the Jupiter's moon, Io, okay? So, since it was the 80s, they saw that these volcanoes were throwing up these minerals, and so they had to go send some poor sucker to go get these minerals, all right? And that was the Dropzone guy, right? Now, you know how it is when you go to one of these planets, you start harvesting the minerals. Here come those aliens. They're always out there. And so these aliens
all the time.
The aliens came to Jupiter to hose up our plans, right? And that was your original Dropzone. Then it says now. So 10 years later, basically. In 2095, the Earth has gotten their act together. And so they've got 3 more moons that they're mining, okay? They're still fighting the aliens, but the aliens keep coming back with more powerful stuff, right? And so your job in this thing is to mine these planets, and if you mine them good enough, you can even get to Jupiter. So, and try to finish the aliens off once and for all. So my guess is, and just like in a lot of games, you went to someone else's backyard, started taking their crap, and then they started attacking you, and we were like, screw you, we'll kill you. So I think in Chocolate, you sort of could be the bad guy. So they're
that's the earthen way.
That is the earthen way. You'll notice that when you play Super Dropzone, it's sort of a no frills game. I mean, there's not it just sort of comes up. It doesn't have like what I would call an elaborate opening. I mean, or anything spectacular. I mean, Super Nintendo games were sort of known; they were pretty flashy. You know, this one's not what I would call mega flashy. But I guess it's serviceable. So, in Super Dropzone, picture a guy, if you're listening at home, picture an astronaut with like one of those big backpacks on. That's the guy you play. Now, picture the game Defender, okay? This is very, very similar to Defender. You fly around this planet. At the bottom of the screen is radar. It's good radar, by the way. It's way better than the radar in Defender because you can actually pick out ground elements in it. And you fly around, and what you're attempting to do is shoot all the aliens that you see. Okay.
And
what's that? I'm not done.
Okay.
Also, there are these little, and this is also explained in the documentation. These planets are very unstable, so they got a bunch of scientists up there. Okay, to keep the planets from, getting all whack, all the volcanoes, right? Your job is to make sure these scientists don't fall into alien hands, because if they do, the aliens can mutate into these things that get a bead on you and come after you. The scientists, they're not just walking around out there like, say, Choplifter. They're in these little pods. All right, they almost look like little star asterisks or something.
They look like atoms.
That's right. Yeah, that's a better description. And the aliens will come get them. And the funny thing is, the game has sound cues for when this happens, and it's like it's someone whistling at you, like almost nonchalantly. Actually, just I'm being abducted, and you go get them. You try to shoot them before they get abducted. Also, the aliens can do a bunch of nefarious stuff. They can drop eggs on the planet that hatch these things that will stalk the scientists. So basically, you're in the game. It's a marriage of 2 different gameplay elements: killing the aliens and making sure they don't take all the scientists. And then You can also pick the scientists up and basically carry them one at a time back to the drop zone landing point and drop them off. And you effectively at the end of the level, you sort of have to do that to keep it to end the level. Now, I'm gonna tell you just before I get to the end of the level, this game has a steep learning curve. Like they don't just throw you in there and assume you know what's going on. You've got to, I mean, instantly the second this game starts, you got aliens all over the place, and you have to be quick on the draw. And when these aliens come out, this isn't a game where you have like hit points or anything. If you run into an alien, you're toast, right? I mean, that's it. Also, the aliens can.
Your guy shatters like glass.
Yeah. And by the way, when that happens, you just sit there. This is one of the. And I'll get to my problems with the game, but that's among them. You're not totally ill-equipped. You've actually got. Of course, this is a Nintendo, so they had to use like every conceivable button to do something. And so what you've got here, aside from the fact that you've got, of course, you got your jetpack that flies you up and down. You've also got a thing they call the...
No. It flies you up.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, and then you sort of fall. It does
not fly you down.
Yeah, hey, it's drop zone, so you do drop a lot. I guess that's why they call it that. You've also got this thing called the cloak, right? It's a cloaking device that makes you indestructible for a little while. It actually, there's a bar that kind of goes down as you use it. You get a pretty good amount of the cloak. I found myself not using the cloak that much. Did you use it that much? Because you can't really do that much when you're cloaked.
Well, I mean, you can still shoot.
I mean,
but
it goes away, and then I never used it that often. I mean, it's funny, it was there, but I never did much with it. I was wondering if your play style was different than mine, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You also get a thing called a strata bomb. It's sort of like it sort of blows up everything on the screen. You've also got, of course, there's also pickups. There's actually a lot of weaponry in this thing. And there's also a lot of bad guys. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's just different stuff. There's pulse bombs, also the crap, all kinds of stuff you can pick up. But I didn't get to pick that much of it up because I didn't get that far without having to use codes to go forward. Because I found this game to be pretty difficult. Just before I keep going, what did you think of the difficulty of this game? What did you think of the presentation? What were your early thoughts when you fired this thing up?
When I first fired it up, I thought, why did Aaron make me play Defender?
Well,
that was, I mean, when it loaded in and I started moving around, that was absolutely my first thought. And I flew around for a little bit, and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I knew my objective, kill the things, collect. I didn't know there were little scientists in those pods.
Yeah, you had to read the
because
docs.
they are, I mean, they're the size of your boot, your guy's boot. So if there are scientists in there, I don't know what's going on. Maybe they're in those American Gladiator roll cages.
That's
because
that's the best thing I've heard.
They make their way back to base, and but they can't go into the base on their own. So you still have to kind of like shove them through the door. So I was playing, and I got to the first boss. I was like, okay, it's got bosses. And I was like, okay, yep, it's Defender with bosses.
Yeah.
Now, do you want me to go on?
No.
Or do you want to finish up?
I want to hear what you thought about the controls and the difficulty.
Sloppy. The controls are sloppy. When you turn your guy, which you constantly have to do, it takes too long. This isn't a bullet hell shooter, but this is a twitch shooter.
Yeah.
So it's all about tight controls. And when your guy turns around, he has too many frames of animation, and it takes too long.
You literally see him, you see him completely turn, which it's a cool effect.
180
That's always been that way, by the way. That's sort of built into the game, that little turn. So
well, it's horrible. It makes the game feel horrible. It hurts. Also, all of your special weapons and stuff like that, never used them. because your starting gun, your main gun with unlimited ammo, shoots tremendously fast, and you can pretty much fill the screen up with bullets, and it never overheats, it never does anything like that. And except for the bosses, most things die in one shot. So it is more of a hindrance to think about needing to switch to a different weapon and worrying about the ammo of that weapon than it is just to shoot a lot of bullets shotgun style and just wipe out everything on the screen.
Did you skip ahead with the passcodes at any point?
Nope,
did. I skipped ahead.
I played straight through it. I got to the point that was the absolute most disappointing for me. If you want me to go into that.
Well, I actually skipped ahead. I just in terms of the difficulty, because this game is one of the games in the Super Nintendo that uses passcodes. So you can skip ahead if you know the codes. Of course, they're all over the place, and so I was interested to see what the game looked like further on. And I will say that the planets change. There are different types. There's also an ice planet. You can actually get to Jupiter, but I didn't find the gameplay change that much as I went forward. I was I didn't look at every level, but I looked at say 2 or 3 of them. The gun you've got does do the job, and I will say listen, I guess I'm not gonna give the game problems for this, but one of the things I had was just you're worried about all these different buttons, and this is frantic action, and so it's kind of hard to say change, like turn the cloak on and stuff and turn it off and do stuff. It's too much. It's so manic. It's hard to remember to do it, to be honest with you, for me anyway. You do get different weapons. You can have crap that multiple fire. You can have stuff that like circles around you. There's a bunch of different weapons. There's a bunch of different aliens too. But most of the time, the ones I saw were the little green ones. Oh, there are. If you look at the documentation, there's tons.
You mean, your normal guys you shoot during the level,
right,
yes.
Right. Now, Brent touched on this, and it's true. So once you complete a level and you escort all the scientists, and there are 10 scientists you're trying to save, once you escort them all back to the Dropzone landing bay, then they all get beamed up. Right? I was like, what is this? And the beam up graphic looks like it's straight out of an 8-bit game. It is the most 8-bit looking thing you ever saw in Super Nintendo. But this thing beams them up, and then that's when it's boss battle time. Now, I only fought one boss. I don't know if you got further than just fighting.
Oh gosh, you did horrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did cheat though, but I mean, I skipped ahead. I want to make sure I got the whole flavor of it. But once the game beams up the scientists, it's boss battle time, gang. The first boss that I fought was this big metal ball, basically, that comes down, and it throws out. This game, the first boss reminded me of a boss that you would fight in Silkworm. Because he kept working the ground with stuff, and he would work the sky. And I thought to myself, who's walking around on the ground to fight this guy? I couldn't figure that out. Yeah. Am I wrong here?
No, that's
because he'll open up and he'll throw these, like, they look like those sea-based mines. That's what they look like. And he throws them, and they bounce along the floor. And all you've got to do is just sort of back up a little bit and keep shooting. But he also throws fire at the ground. And I kept thinking to myself, why is this guy focusing on the ground? I'm in the air. Why would I be? You can't shoot him on the ground. I couldn't figure that out. If you were playing Silkworm and you had the Jeep, I could see it then. But that's, maybe the boss got lost. He ended up in the wrong game. Anyway, once you blow the boss up, it tallies up your rescued scientists, and then it's time for the next level. That's it. Rinse and repeat, Brent. Now, I've seen some of the other bosses. Watch a video. We just saw this. We saw the guy fight the sun that comes down. What other bosses did you see down the line?
All right, real time. All right. This game sucks.
Oh,
there are, from what I saw, and I will fully admit I did not get off IO, but I got to the point where it was looping bosses. And there are 3 bosses. 3. And then it loops them.
Yeah.
That is unacceptable. 3 bosses, and then it loops them? No. The controls on this are not tight enough for the action that it presents. Not being able to move down. You have thrusters to go up. That's fine, but you can't thrust down. You don't have any, way to move down. You just have to float
It's
down.
drop zone. You're supposed to drop.
Well, it's incredibly frustrating. And the levels, the enemies that I fought, there's only one enemy that's hard, and it's these things called the tracers.
Yeah.
And you don't encounter them until later in the game. But they just come at you and then break apart into like Tron light paths, and they home in onto your guy. They're super annoying because they're so tiny. And I ended up wasting all my bombs on them, and then I still couldn't get past that level.
Yeah.
But the game is the game hard? Yes, the game is hard. I don't think it's overly hard. If it had better controls, taking so long to turn around, it's so frustrating. It is, because you are constantly trying to be on the edge of the screen. You want whatever you're fighting on one side, and you want to be on the other side. And if you start moving, because you have no precise control, it's all this kind of float type control. If you start moving and you get too close, and then you have to turn around and move back, and then turn back around to shoot to protect yourself, it's so slow and so frustrating. When you die, it has this explode animation of your character, which is a kind of a neat effect, but it takes so long.
Yeah,
I mean, for the rest of the game to be so manic, and for that animation to take like 7 or 8 seconds, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but when the action, it has you pumped up, and you're in that fierce zone where you're hyped and you're moving around, and then you just sit there. It kills your momentum. It absolutely kills your momentum. This is a game, and like I said, when I first fired it up, it felt like Defender, right? When you told me this was a remake of an 84 game, I can completely see it, because this is the kind of action that would have fit perfectly back in the 80s. And I'm not to saying that the 90s doesn't deserve action like this. It does. But this doesn't have the necessary quality of life changes to make it suitable to be a Super Nintendo game. If they would have had more variety of bosses, if they would have had a more interesting visuals, because all of the enemies are these little specks. They're so tiny, except for the bosses. And once you see all 3 bosses and then you see them again, you're like, please just get me out of here. I did not enjoy my experience with the game. I think I got to level 7. I think is where I got.
Did you get to did you get to the snow planet?
No, I did not get off IO. I know that for sure.
So, I think I didn't hate this as much as you. I actually, if you've played the original versions of these games, I think this is a generational thing. And also, I will say, I don't think this game was a good fit on the Super Nintendo, and I'll explain why. This game plays very similar to the other ones, including the movement. This is a lot like an Asteroid or something. The limitations of the movement are part of the game. That's the game. That's the main part of the game.
And I get that.
And so
I understand that, but you can't. I understand that, and I try to keep that in mind, that they supposedly have balanced the game for you not to be able to do these things, or to be able to do snap turns. But it felt so sluggish when all the rest of the game is so fast, and your up movement is super fast, and your shooting is super fast, and all the enemies are super fast, and then you have these horribly slow elements, like dying, like turning around, like moving down. It seems disconnected to me. I think if you're going to have a fast manic game, you have to have a fast manic game. You can't do some things that are fast and manic and then have some parts of the game that are slow, and it just breaks the flow for me. It felt so bad to play
Well,
this.
listen, here's my thinking on this. When Archer MacLean made his first game, he'd say, listen, remember a couple weeks ago when we did Dave's Midnight Magic on the Atari show? Dave just went out and saw a good pinball machine and just made a game of it, right? I think Archer said, okay, I need to make a game. Defender's popular. What can I do with the Defender to make it more my own game? And so he installed this Dropzone physics and the guy, and it worked. It worked. It sort of changed the Defender, the way you play Defender, okay? And that's all well and good, okay? But fast forward to 94, where games people expect a little more, and they did give you a little more. They upped the graphics. They put some pretty good graphics in the background. The graphics and the sound are pretty solid. You know, they're very arcadey.
I agree with that. I think the graphics are fine.
And they thought, well,
we'll too small.
We'll put some boss battles in here. You know, we'll add a bunch of weaponry. Use all the buttons. You know, and then it'll be upgraded for the Super Nintendo. Well, it takes more than that to appease that crowd, right? Because games had advanced. Here's what I would have liked to have seen, honestly, is I would have liked to have had hit points for starters, or a power bar, something, where you don't, because you're right. And then I wouldn't have minded getting hit as much, because you're right. When you get hit and you sit there for 8 seconds, that sucks. That's one of my least favorite parts of the game, is waiting for that crap to happen. Also, the weird part at the end of the level where you have to get all the scientists and put them in the drop zone, that was goofy. Like, I didn't understand any of that. When you kill the last alien, level over. You know, none of this other crap. And of course, they had to do that so the thing could beam them up. Nah. Just have the boss come out. You don't have to do all other crap, you know.
Play a warning sound to get people hyped up, and then have the boss.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now, all that said, I do like the play elements. This is still fun. I mean, it's still a fun game. It's still very similar to the original ones, just souped up. You know, so if you're going to play Dropzone, this isn't the worst. But they did something that always bugs me, is that they're like, hey, let's use every button on this thing to do stuff. Like, this didn't need all this crap, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have added half of it, like I said, the action's so frantic and manic, you don't even use most of the stuff that you've got. So they could have. They didn't need. I mean, I guess they tried to make it so that's their way of updating it, but I didn't like that either. That element of it. I mean, sometimes simple is better, you know. But overall, this is a real weird title for the Super Nintendo. I mean, it really is. It doesn't even feel like it fits on the Super Nintendo, does it? This does feel more like a Game Boy Color game or something. You know, something like that. I could see this on a Game Boy. Even the Game Boy Advance, this would be pretty basic, wouldn't it?
I want to go. I want to roll back myself a little bit. This game doesn't suck. Yeah. It just is not up to the standards of Super Nintendo, and it has flaws. It doesn't suck. I mean, I think if this game is up somewhere and it's something you can walk up and play, go ahead and play it. I'd be interested to go back and play the older game to see how much it is like this one, because I'm gonna assume it's almost identical.
Well, I mean, your actual character you play, and it's very similar. Yeah, there's not like there's no bosses, but I mean it's a very similar game.
Oh my gosh!
There's no bosses, but this is a C64 game. Is my point. You know, I think it's an interesting title. I'm glad I played it. I didn't know about it until this show. So, and I had played the other one, obviously. So yeah, I dug it. I like some of the power ups are okay, but like I said, just a little bit. They were trying to straddle they were straddling two different eras with this one, and I don't think they really firmly landed in either. So there you go.
I agree.
I looked up some reviews on this. The Brent. Computers and Video Games in 94 gave this thing 80%. Mega Fun in 94 gave it 79%. Playtime in 94 gave it 70%. Video Game Magazine gave it 69%. And the Germans were not kind to this game. Total, which is a German magazine, in November of 94, 2.75 out of 6. Not so good.
Well, I mean, that's almost half.
That's not so good.
No, if half is average, then that's fine. I think this is a slightly below average game.
We got some reviews on this, stunningly, Brent. We actually got some reviews this week. A lot of reviews. John, Boat of Car Schaller writes, I'm a big fan of Dropzone. It always struck me as a more approachable version of Defender with a specific goal to accomplish other than just to survive. I agree with that. This version sports an impressive animated intro that would be at home. I don't know about that. Would be at home on any 16-bit computer. Unfortunately, the game itself left me cold. I found the backgrounds to be too busy, your character to be too floaty, and the added boss battles to be uninspired. Some games are better left in the past, he writes. So there you go. Paul, a.k.a. Hermsky, kicks in. A Herm Firm, 7 out of 10. This is a 16-bit version of Jetpack, were my first thoughts. That's another popular 8-bit game. A fast-paced, thrust-type shoot-'em-up. The graphics and sound effects are respectable. Overall, a fun game for me on the SNES. So there you go. Mitsuyama dropped a review on us. This is a Defender clone with a bit of the Psygnosis spit and polish. It has nice graphics and sound, and the fast scrolling makes for a challenging game. The requirement to escort the scientists back to the base and the boss battles attempt to add some variation to the gameplay, but it essentially plays like Defender. If you enjoy Defender, then you'll enjoy this. Unfortunately, I've never gotten along with Defender. It's just not a cup of tea. And similarly, I didn't enjoy this much. 5 out of 10. Brent from
I think that's
Mitsuyama.
very fair.
And yes, Z9K9 chimed in. A competent sprucing up of Dropzone. Graphics and sounds are very cozy and nice. The additions, bosses, and power-ups are unnecessary. Bam! And perhaps divert from the core game, but are also kind of fun. The thing is, Dropzone was always somewhat compromised to begin with, a less pure Defender. Vertical momentum plus the drag of gravity makes aiming fiddly. I wonder if either momentum or gravity alone would have felt artfully controllable, but both push it over the edge into unconsciously tiring. No reverse button means you can't fire while retreating. Indeed, you must move, even if only a little, in the direction you want to fire, fitting towards uncomfortably close encounters. The SNES controller, with its multiple buttons, could have been an opportunity to design a bespoke new approach to direction locking that the original single-button joystick inevitably lacked. That's a good idea. Having those buttons fire in different directions would have been awesome. Sort of like a flying Robotron. That's a darn good idea from Z9. And the two broad gameplay aims of returning the pods to the base and fighting the invaders don't fully integrate. You simply return the pods and forget about them for the rest of the wave, whereas in Defender, the humanoids and invaders remain in symbiotic play altogether all the time. To its credit, Dropzone is rebalanced to accommodate these quirks. For example, the enemies fire at you a lot less than in Defender. And while it falls short from the perfect classic, I still enjoy Dropzone, and for this version of it, 7.5 out of 10. Z9K9 is a wordsmith, Brent, by the way. I don't know if you noticed that. This guy went to work. So I would concur with those reviews for the most part. I think almost everything that they mentioned is something that we've talked about. A interesting game, a fun diversion, and a game you can pick up on the cheap, I should add. I'll look this up on the eBay. And, of course, there's people out there trying to work an angle. You can get a loose card for this if you look around for like $5. If you're looking for a box version, these things were all over the map. I saw people asking $20 for them, all the way up to $220, and then 37, 52. They're all on the map, but they weren't selling either. So I'm pretty sure you can grab this European exclusive for a decent price, especially if you're in Europe, Brent. So there you go. So Archer MacLean's Dropzone, an interesting, wacky Super Nintendo title. So, Brent, what did you... Now, let's go back for a minute. You had the entire pantheon of the Super Nintendo universe to pick from. Which gem did you jump out and grab for ARG Presents this week?
I am defending Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City.
Holy smokes, Brent. Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City? How did you come to pick this, if I may ask? I knew how I picked mine. Off the cusp,
and then once I did some research and playing, I'm going to make it my mission to change some opinions today.
Oh, okay.
So this is an Electronic Arts developed game, published by them as well. Super Nintendo exclusive, released in '94 in the States and '95 over in Europe. But none of that's important. What is important is the amount of hate this game gets.
Yeah, you were ridiculed right out of the gate.
Yes. So let's talk about what the game is, and then we'll talk about what the game isn't, and then we'll talk about if it's just or not. Michael Jordan in the Windy City, or Chaos in the Windy City, is a platformer in the style of the 90s, where you are pretty much in a large maze-like environment. It's 2D. You have to find the keys, rescue the people, get to the end of the level. It gives you all kinds of neat power-ups you can use along the way, and the enemies are a lot of either just walk forward type enemies. You know, there's not anything special with them. They're just there to kind of get in your way. And there are stronger enemies that take more shots. And then there are some enemies that are, you have to have some kind of skill. Maybe they fly around, or maybe they will heat seek on you, that sort of stuff. So really, in the form of a platformer, pretty standard fare. The graphics in it are pretty good for the time. The animations are incredible. The music in it is okay. It's nothing tremendously special.
Did you see who did the music? I believe I was watching the Christmas, and I believe it was David Whittaker, who's done tons and tons of stuff on the 16 bits. Yeah.
Yes, it was David Whittaker.
He's everywhere.
And he does. I mean, I don't think any of this music is off the charts. I think the L Train scenes, the music in that is real good. It's got this jazzy beat. So as a platformer, it has loose controls, which is unfortunate. You don't feel in control enough. It also has complicated controls. You use a lot of buttons to do not a lot of stuff. For example, there's a jump, and then there's a slam dunk jump, where the jump is just what you think of as a normal jump, and then the slam dunk jump allows you to throw a ball downward. The ball being the projectile that you use throughout the game.
Then don't forget the extended arm jump, which is a separate combination of buttons.
No, that's the slam dunk.
No, there's the other one where when you grab those hooks.
Press up. Yeah, press up and jump, and you'll grab onto items. So as a platformer, this game, the biggest absolute complaint of it is the camera. And it's not that the camera is bad, it's that the camera has an effect where when you change directions, it swings to put you on the edge of the screen, which is good, but then it does this little wiggle at the end that it's trying to be stylized, but it's nauseating.
It's almost like your cameraman's a little tipsy.
Just a little
like he's trying to follow the action, but it's hot and heavy, and so maybe they have those things that you put the camera on that make them smooth. Maybe there's some springs attached, and the camera kind of springs into place. I will say I heard a lot of complaints about the camera before I played this, and the camera didn't bother me at all. I mean, I noticed it, but I didn't stop me from playing.
It's a little nauseating.
No, it didn't bother me.
The other thing as a platformer that it sins on is if you get too close to the edge of a ledge, you will go into a ledge animation where it's like, oh no, I'm falling. Yeah. Which that's not bad in and of itself, but it actually prevents you from taking some actions. And because of that, you'll have a lot of unnecessary hits or possibly even deaths. It's a sin that's unforgivable. Having that animation is fine, but you can't stop a character from doing some things because of that animation. And then the last thing, just from a platformer standpoint, that it really sins on is it has a lot of pits to your death, And for a game that has kind of loosey-goosey controls anyway, unforgivable. You don't need that. The game's hard enough without it, and with all the bottomless pits that it presents you, not every level, but enough levels that it's a major problem. All that combines into a mediocre platform. It's a 6 out of 10, standard run of the mill for the age. So why am I bringing this up to defend?
Yeah, because you're doing a crappy job so far.
Because all that stuff I'm not defending. Okay, all that stuff is things that should have been fixed before the game was released, and it does merit some hate for the game, but that's not why people hate this game. The reason why people hate this game is it's Michael Jordan, and people hated it so much because it was Michael Jordan that in the same issue of Nintendo Power that we were talking about at the beginning of the show, they ranked this the 7th worst game of all time.
Ah!
That is embarrassing for Nintendo Power.
This game got the Shaq Fu treatment, is what it got.
No, because Shaq Fu made 3rd on that list.
And Shaq Fu, we've played Shaq Fu on the Amigos, and we both did not hate Shaq Fu.
Okay, well, but here's the thing, and I'm not going to defend Shaq Fu, and I'm going to talk about that. The reason why Nintendo Power rated this the 7th worst game. Now remember, in 1997, this was rated the 7th worst game of all time. It's not like this was fresh in anyone's mind. This was 3 years after the fact. The reason why they ranked it the 7th worst game of all time, and I'm going to quote the magazine, not that this game was even that bad, but it wins the award for totally blowing the best license in the universe. What's next? Michael Saves Nike Town. I completely disagree that they blew the licensing. Through and through, this game screams Michael Jordan.
Yeah. All
of his weapons are basketballs. It even plays on it because as you get different powers, the basketballs have different looks. And one of the basketballs looks like a baseball because this was when he was starting his baseball career. Throughout the levels, there are basketball hoops that you can slam dunk into to get items. The whole premise of the game is that Michael Jordan showed up to a charity basketball event and all the players were kidnapped. And now he's going to try to find out what happened to them. And it turns out that this evil guy, Maximum Cranium, I can't remember the bad guy's name. How bad is that?
It was something like that. Yeah, it was dumb.
He kidnapped all the basketball people, and the reason why he did it, if you actually get the story, and you have to play the game, it's very hard to actually find out all the story is. He was a sideshow attraction, and people where he was an adult, but he was forced to act like a baby and do mathematical equations to impress people. So he's jaded now, and he wants these basketball players to come and play for his team so he can earn respect back. That's the whole premise of the game. That's why he wasn't just evil to be evil. He wanted these people, basically he kidnapped friends. And then when they wouldn't play with him, he started, he was like, I'm just going to make my own friends.
I mean, it is a stupid plot. I mean,
that's
one of the stupidest plots I've ever heard.
It's a game, right? So so now, since no one wanted to, play with him, to be on his basketball team, he's trying to mutate or clone or make robotic doubles of these people.
Yeah, he's doing experiments on them. That's what you're.
Yeah, it's evil genius.
Right. But I mean, he is super evil because he's made a bunch of zombie basketball players that walk around the level.
No, he is evil. I'm not defending him.
Okay. Because it sounded like you were like giving this guy some love. It's like, what are you talking about?
No. But the premise to make sense of why there are all these basketball hoops everywhere, why he kidnapped all these basketball players. All of that makes sense. And it all screams Michael Jordan.
It screams
your
something.
Your health power-ups in the game are Gatorade and boxes of Wheaties. Which, yes,
it's all licensed.
Throwing commercials, yes, into the game. But Michael Jordan, at the time, it made sense. They weren't cramming in things that didn't make sense. They made sense with who Michael Jordan is. You pick up Nike shoes that would make you invincible. So all of that is super on brand with Michael Jordan. And to say that they wasted the license, I think is completely off base. Yes, they could have made another basketball game because Michael Jordan wasn't part of the NBA license. You had to buy him separately if you bought, if you were making a basketball game. He had one of those things going on because he was, huge basketball player. But they wanted to go something different, and they used the license of Michael Jordan beautifully, in my opinion, to make a mediocre game. And I'll tell you where some of the hate comes from. Because I read a lot of articles, both from the time period and more recently. Everyone brings up 7th worst game of all time. This literally 2 lines written in a Nintendo Power article magazine. And that's what they lash on to, and they hate on the game. Is the game great? No, it's not. It's not. It's a mediocre platformer. But it's people who don't know anything about gaming trying to cash in on bad-mouthing Michael Jordan, and they don't know what they're talking about. The game is okay. It's mediocre. They used the license wonderfully by implementing all of these real-life things about Michael Jordan into the game. He throws basketballs for weapons, and he throws them in a bunch of different ways. When you rescue the people, you rescue basketball players, and they don't actually have the other basketball players' names.
It doesn't matter. They don't. They got Michael Jordan. Who cares? There is no other basketball player that matters.
Right.
I would have paid nobody nothing.
They have these conversations, and if you know things about basketball, you can actually pick up who they are or who they're supposed to be without them saying their name, which I thought was a great touch. I am just blown away at the hate this game gets. Aaron, what did you think about it?
Well, I've never played this. I had heard of it, but I never played it. And when you picked it on our Discord, Rushi insta-buried you. I mean, right out of the gate, it was a full-on burial. I thought to myself, my God, this must be horrible. But, and I'm going to go back to it, when me and Boat played Shaq Fu, this game and Shaq Fu, they have a lot in common. Not just because they've got 2 big basketball guys in them. It's because they're easy targets for people to be like, oh, I don't know. They don't like it when you mix genres or whatever it is.
One thing. I want to say something. Shaq Fu was a disaster. And it wasn't because it didn't matter about how good or bad Shaq Fu was. It was a horrible use of the license.
Well,
because the game had nothing to do with Shaquille O'Neal.
Now, hold on a second.
It had a basketball playing fighter in it that you didn't even have to be. It had nothing to do with Shaquille O'Neal.
Well, that's Shaq Fu. I'm not going to get into Shaq Fu, but I don't necessarily agree with that. But I mean, it wasn't as good license-wise. No, it wasn't. I agree with you on your licensing comment. I mean, listen. They stuff as much Michael Jordan as they can. They've got backboards around you just randomly slam dunk into. I mean, the whole premise of this game is the most ridiculous, stupid premise. I mean,
it's a video game.
No, I mean, it's my kind of dumb. Okay, we did a game on the Amiga called the Soccer Kid. Okay, Soccer Kid walked around with a soccer ball and he kicked it into enemies. Okay, this is sort of the same premise. Michael Jordan goes around and whacks guys with a basketball. And the cool thing about it is, much like in Soccer Kid, you can throw the basketball and bounce it off stuff. You can get different types of basketballs, lead ones and fire ones, baseballs, all this crazy stuff. But listen, I agree with everything you said. This game is not bad at all. I played it. I expected it to be horrible, and I played this way more than I did Dropzone. I beat the first boss on the game and rolled into the second level. I mean,
you played this far enough to beat the first boss?
Yeah, I did.
Bravo, Aaron.
Thank you.
Bravo. Because I'll tell you something. I struggled to beat that first boss.
I try to give these games a fair shake. And when someone tells me how bad these games... Listen, I'll show you some bad games, sucker. Clearly, the people that said this is the 7th worst game of all time didn't play Top Banana or first-person pinball. I'll tell you what, I'll take anyone on. You think you've got a bad game? Come on down to my house. I'll take care of you, my friend. There's no way this is on that level. The anime... Now, listen, you're right. Is this the perfect platformer? No, absolutely not. But... I like what they're doing. They're making these basketball stars they're giving them something else to do. How many Michael Jordan basketball games do you need? We've got them.
Exactly. You've already got Michael Jordan versus Larry Bird. You don't need another.
Much like Shaq Fu, you've got these basketball players. They've already got their basketball games. You've got the license. They're bigger than life characters. Now, to be fair, somewhere along the way in this, there should have been some sort of bit where Michael Jordan goes to the casino or the dog track. Something like that, but
oh, come on, let's not go there.
All that said, I mean, I thought this was pretty funny. Does he have a continual, uninterruptible supply of basketballs? Yes, that's what's funny about it. It's ludicrously funny. The fact that you're rescuing these other basketball players. By the way, the same thing happened to Shaq when he was on his way to basketball practice for the big All-Star event. He got kidnapped in that one too. So again,
well, Jordan didn't get kidnapped.
Well,
in this one.
I watched it.
They threw a basketball,
but he had to go. He had to go.
Yeah, it's like, come rescue your friends, jerkwad.
I did think it was funny that the bad guy wrote a message on a basketball and threw it through the glass. I thought that was stupid. There's a lot of, like I said, you can't take it seriously, but I mean, by no means is this a horrible game. Like, I kept hearing how bad the camera was. Listen, it's not that bad. Come on. It's even got the ability where you can scroll a little bit downwards and upwards when so you can see what's coming. It's got the famous Jumping Man logo all over it. It's got, like you said, it's got the tie-in licenses. It's got a lot of Jordan stuff in it. And on the basis of that, I found it amusing. Like, we're looking here at the video. At the end of the level, it shows the big scoreboard. I thought that was cool, too. I like that was too. Now, I will say, I did watch video of people playing this. It does get repetitive. The levels, there really aren't that many different levels. There aren't a ton.
Well, there aren't, but the environments, it's an overworld map, and you have, I think, 6 zones, and in each zone you have between 4 to 6 levels. And the background, it's unfortunate that the background that they started with is probably the worst one. I used some codes because I couldn't get past, I think, like 2-3 or 2-2 was one of those. And the first background they put you in is probably the least interesting one. But they try to warm up different mechanics as they go, and the game definitely gets more complicated. Also, the villains and the bad guys are all basketball themed. You fight a giant whistle as a common bad guy. Referees, you take the bonus level in between some of the levels you get on the L train. Did you play any of those levels?
I did not. No, I saw a video of them.
When you get on the L train, you're just riding the train from one place to another, and reporters are in your face. And you have to hit them with basketballs to get them out of your face, and they're taking pictures and crap like that. I thought that was cute, and it's basically just to get some more power up stage. It's a mediocre platformer with a Michael Jordan theme. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I played this game for about 8 hours.
Yeah, I believe that. I knew it was right behind. And I will say, but I mean, listen, the game's got flaws. It uses too many buttons stupidly. You could have condensed most of these moves into one button, and it would have been better.
I agree.
Like, that was one thing that drove me nuts, having to try to remember which button did what. So that was stupid.
And it's super hard.
The inventory, listen, you can pick stuff up, switch between it. At first, I didn't know what to do, like how to open the doors and stuff, but you figure it out. It's got stuff that's hidden you can't figure out how to get to. That shtick, I like that. Like I said, this was a perfectly average game that was lifted up by the fact that it was so stupid. The stupidity helped. That's what I like about it.
Yes.
So I'll give this one stupid credit.
I was already, Aaron, and by the way, I think this is worth emulating.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you like platformers, if you like hard platformers, because it is certainly absolutely
listen,
hard.
and people should go judge. Listen, don't listen to us. Go judge it for yourself. You go play this, and then tell me this is the 7th worst game of all time. It's not. It's not the 100th worst game of all time. Is it the best game? No, but it's totally serviceable game in my opinion. Brent.
I was already, Aaron. I was already for us to battle on this and throw down major hate towards each other. I cannot express to you how happy I am to see that you cut through the media hype and thought that this was an okay game.
Now that I've pleased you with my selection, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. So we got a lot of Discord action on this. I want to, as I mentioned earlier, Brent mentioned on Discord he'll be playing Chaos in Windy City. The very first comment from Rushi, I'm sorry to hear that. Then here's a succinct and quick review from John Bodekar Schaller. Garbage. Like Yo-Joe with a basketball. By the way, I like Yo-Joe. Sundon says, Windy City makes me always think of a huge crowd of people farting. So that's a lovely sentiment. Mitsuyama comes in. Phew, what a stinker. It's a generic platformer, and slapping in Michael Jordan and a basketball theme does nothing to improve it. There might be a fun game in here, but the controls were just so awful. I can't pinpoint what makes the controls so bad, but nothing seems to flow. I guess they just slapped Jordan into a bad game in the hopes that it would sell a few more units. It's best left alone. 3 out of 10.
I think that's
Rushi
unfair.
comes back with a far more in-depth look. An absurd license for an exploration platform that unfortunately is let down by loose controls and a whiplash-inducing camera. Playing via emulation today removes the need for password saves, which is an absolute godsend. A waste of one of the biggest individual licenses of the era, but one that feels like it's just a ROM hack away from being something so much more. Adding battery-backed saves and responsive controls can improve it drastically. 6 out of 10.
I think 6 out of 10 is a fair score.
Because Rushi's not done. There's an adjoining burial here. I also can't believe that with the depth and quality of the Super Nintendo library, that this was the game you chose. I hope it's to repudiate the poorly thought out Top 10 Worst Games award it received from Nintendo Power, or to highlight the oddity of how the license was used. Because, dude, Bill Lambert's Combat Basketball was a more effective tie-in. Chaos in the Windy City is the Revolution X of its field. What?
Well, I don't know about that.
So there you go. I've never heard a burial of that quality, Brent. He went out of his way to badmouth you and the game. Good job, Rushi.
That's okay. I can take it. I can take it.
Listen.
You know the funny thing, and he unfortunately he didn't make it into the supporter video because his pledge was so
that's
late.
Funny how that worked.
Roushi is our newest Patreon member. And he might also be our most short-lived Patreon member.
Listen, there's only one thing you can do after a brutal burial like that. It's unleash the freaking wheel. Here we go.
That's it.
All right. So, this week, we only had to add one piece, and it's the Retro Rewind. It's the VIC-20, Brett. Remember the VIC-20?
I would allow, you know what? Let's play some VIC-20.
What was that game you did? Sword of Fugal or whatever? Pretty good game. All right, here we go. Oh, there's a lot of crazy garbage on here. Let's get it right in there. And the winner is the PlayStation, Brent. It's the PlayStation. That's our first effort on the PlayStation. Brent is so happy. This was your idea, Brent, to put the PlayStation on the wheel. By a popular demand.
No, it wasn't.
He loves the PlayStation.
Absolutely not my idea.
So next week, Brent, you can find another crazy title from the vast library of PlayStation titles.
I vetoed the PlayStation piece a dozen times, but the fans demanded it.
That was put on the wheel by popular response because ARG will go anywhere. And if you think about it, the PlayStation's pretty old. At this point, it's not like the PlayStation just came out, and we did do the Xbox, so it seems only fair, and the Dreamcast. Now listen, the PlayStation has a ton of crazy titles. It's a crazy title
it's a great system. Yeah. I'm not denying that. It's gonna be great. I have no personal connection to it. Plus, I know pretty much all there is to know about it. So this is going to be a rough week for me. I'm not going to lie.
Mention Paul Kitchen just said PlayStation not retro, because we've never fully established what is. First of all, we play anything. We don't care. But I think the PlayStation. Listen, my old philosophy was anything that involves a CD, you're getting out of the retro area. But then you got the Sega CD in there. You got the CD32. No one says nothing about playing that stuff. But the PlayStation, you've crossed the line. We're crossing that sucker. That's the way we do it. Brent, anything you want to put in here at the end? Shout outs, shout downs, defending, anything. What do you have to say here before we shut this sucker down?
We'll get another winner next week, I guess. Everyone was so happy with our choices.
Man, I've never seen you so deflated. You know, one thing I've noticed about this show is whenever we look at a couple mediocre titles, that's when we go over an hour. That's the way we do it. We'll talk about a mediocre title till the cows come home. It's the ARG way. Hey, thanks everyone for popping by and checking us out. We appreciate you. We will be back same bat time, same bat channel next week, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for some PlayStation titles. So until then, go out to the dog track, grab yourself a Gatorade, a bowl of Wheaties, and do it the Michael Jordan way. That's the American way. Until then, see you later.
Thanks for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Hello to our YouTube subscribers and our Twitch followers. A special thank you to Duncan Styles for our vector graphics and Bartbit for an amazing closing theme. Want to help keep ARG spinning for as little as $1 a month? You can do so at our new Patreon at patreon.com/ARG Presents. Just like these fine folks. Graham W. Vetke, Rollo, Olaf Hope, Anthony Jarvis, Terry Howard, Gary Heather, John Schaller, The Slow Norris, Frodo NL, Steve Rasmussen, Bernhard Lucas, Chris Folds, Mitsuyama, Jason Warnes, Rob Black O'Hara, Andy Craig, Dave Velociraptor, Retroalgy, Hermsky, John Dykeman, Jerry Dennington, Z9K9, and Mr. B. Don't want to explain another credit card bill? That's okay too. You can help us out by leaving us a positive review on Spotify or Apple iTunes. Have an idea for a wheel piece? Email it to us at argpresents@mail.com. We film live every Sunday, 10 a.m. EDT on Twitch. Hope to see you there.